Welcome to the next episode of The Lair. I am your host, Dr. Daniel Ford. And what I've been thinking about in The Lair is still racism. How are we dealing with it in America? And really, how do we as parents talk about racism with our children? Also, I'm thinking about artificial intelligence. I think in many ways, we don't talk about some of the implications that may occur with artificial intelligence as it applies to cybersecurity. But even later, how is artificial intelligence going to evolve and possibly even harm us more when it comes to the government, maybe with law enforcement? Some things I've been talking about. So joining me today is a retired major in the Army. After she left the Army, she joined a convent and she became a nun. And as far as I know, she is the very first person to ever leave being a nun and become a cybersecurity expert. So joining us is Dr. Sister Mary Margaret.
Wait a minute, who said I was no longer a nun?
Well, you know, that's just the rumor.
I just changed the game and I brought those two worlds together. What are you talking about?
I'm glad you're able to join me today in the Lair. How are you? What's going on? It's been forever since we've seen each other. Maybe
I know.
3 or 4 years.
In our capital days, right? So I'm doing great.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. You know, loving life, taking advantage of all the great opportunities and thankful for, you know, all the paths that led me in this direction. So just getting involved in a lot. I'm still teaching. So I'm still teaching, you know, courses a little bit different. You know, I'm still in cyber and IA, but I'm also teaching a little bit more in my field. You know, my background is in education. So, and my doctorate's in leadership and management. So I finally am teaching organizational leadership and management courses, a little bit different than my cyber and computer science days, but I'm making the best of these worlds, bringing them together, letting them, showing people how they all work so well together.
And they absolutely do. And probably, you know, one of the things that's just impressive, you know, really about you, and I always find this, at least for maybe for myself, because, well, being a father is much different than I think is being a mother. You have done all of this while being a military officer, working full-time, continuing your education full-time, and having to be a mom. For those moms or expecting moms, what kind of advice would you give them on how to properly balance? Because I mean, everything stays a balance, but you know, how do you juggle all of these things?
Well, one thing I will say, I learned this early on, and well, I can say early, about 2011 timeframe, when I had to make a really hard decision on whether or not I wanted to go to, I think it was Texas at the time, El Paso, and I was working on these, you know, this next position that's going to take me to the next rank, which was Lieutenant Colonel. And I had to make a really hard decision. And I just will say, put your family first, put your children first, and let everything fall into place. So, you know, no matter what decision you have to make sure that you're putting your wants and needs of your family first, and let everything else fall into place. And it'll all work out. It'll all work out. Just don't neglect family, don't neglect children. Make sure they're first and foremost in your life, and then let everything else work itself out, and it will. It definitely will.
I hope so.
Right?
I mean,
you know,
one way or another, it works out.
Positive stuff out, right, and hope that positive stuff comes right back at you. But I know it sounds like fluff, but that's exactly what happened to me. It happened to me a few times in my career. I had to make some hard choices, and I almost sacrificed my military career because I said, no, I'm not going this direction, because I knew that would take me away from family. And I did it. I did it a few times, and it's always worked out for the best. So that's my advice from my experience.
I think that's good. I think that's good advice. You know, when you were first, you know, joining kind of the pre, you have your shirt on, says "I can't breathe." I think, you know, while we didn't want to go heavy political, I think it's just, you know, I would like, you know, especially because of your organizational leadership skills and what you've had to do, when people tend to reply to the aspect of Black Lives Matter with all lives matter. What I have been telling them is, and I don't know how many years ago when I kind of changed my mind a little bit, but I had said that, you know, I forgot the leading with empathy piece of this. And you had a question on LinkedIn, not just on how can you lead with empathy? Well, to me, it was, I was not putting myself in the position of those communities and those people that were feeling hurt. And I couldn't imagine those aspects until I started reading a lot more about what it means to lead with empathy, which is making sure you're providing the desires, or you're providing things to address the desires of your people. And I think people forgot that, because, as a white man, I've witnessed racism happening to people, but I've never had to go through it in this country. I've gone through it in other countries. But I think, at least from my perspective, I tell them is that, look, you've got a community that is suffering, and by you responding with that, it shows your lack of empathy for those that are currently scared, at least to a little bit, or if not in other communities, maybe they're fearful greatly. How would you maybe change that, or would you change that?
I'm glad you talked about it. Yes, I do wear this shirt, and I wear it proudly. So I will just say to you, yes, white men don't understand, what this, really don't really understand the root of it. It's hard to have that empathy for it. And being a woman of color, of lighter complexion, I too don't understand the severity of what people are going through. And the difference with, the conversations about all lives matter. So this is how I got it in my head, and I try to understand it here, is that all lives do matter. The problem is, before, Black lives did not matter. So what we're saying here is that Black lives don't matter, and they need to matter. It should be more than just matter, because to me that's just very small, it's very insignificant amount. It should be glorified. It should be treated like any other life is treated. But in history will show itself is that Black lives did not matter, and now they should matter. So that's where we get into the difference between Black lives matter and all lives matter. And while it's obvious all lives matter, but if that's the case, if all lives matter, then why haven't Black lives mattered all this time? Now they need to, matter, and I think what's so wonderful about this time, and of course we understand history, we've seen riots in the past, we've experienced racism in the past, but what is so beautiful about this, I live in Edgewater, Maryland, which is a predominantly white neighborhood. The other day, it was last weekend, I went out for a walk, and I'm looking across the street, and all of a sudden the cops are everywhere. They're, securing the perimeter so people can march through. And I look over at the crowd of people marching, and it was predominantly, if not all people, they're all white people. And there may be a handful of Black people in the back. And they're screaming out the names of people who lost their lives. They're fighting for Black Lives Matter. And so what's so wonderful about this day and age is that we're all fighting this fight together, all races and all colors, because Black lives mattering means all lives matter. So it's a horrible thing that's happened, but it's also a beautiful thing to witness, people coming together, all different races and colors from all over, just supporting, and all over the world. I've never seen anything like it, and I'm glad that I've experienced it, and my children are old enough to see this dream that was once one man's and coming together, seeing us all work together. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think so. I had two young ladies on my show earlier. They actually interned for me at Silent Circle, Cynthia and Olivia Harrison. They were down at a protest in Richmond, Virginia, where they were tear gassed. And it was a very peaceful, by all accounts, a peaceful demonstration, 30 minutes before curfew. And they were tear gassed, which was horrible. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad to see more of the younger generation getting involved, understanding some of the perils that we all go through. One of the things that I realized when I was at Capital Tech University was how quickly technology can be a differentiator, especially to those that are not in an affluent neighborhood, like in Baltimore City and PG County, Maryland. Some of the places they're not even, I would say, middle class in a lot of these areas. And what Capital had done under the leadership of Helen Barker at the time was to really get there, invest in a cyber lab, to where even if they didn't have technology at home, when they came into the school, they had full access. And I saw people's lives transformed because they had a legitimate shot of really, getting out of the poor neighborhoods and making a good living very quickly after graduation. And I think that's something that that's when I really started to pay attention to how technology can help those in disadvantaged communities, help to raise that bar. Because as you said, saying that, hey, oh, Black Lives Matter, that should be the entry level aspect. It's not
You
enough.
shouldn't even have to say it at all. It should just be, it should be obvious, right?
It really should, and it's interesting because I just finished reading a book about the samurai way from, I can't remember, I think it was Matsumoto. I'm probably really brutalizing his name, and he says in there that all humans should be treated equally, and by their actions is how they should be judged. This is in the 18th century, and they knew this to be true, and yet still today it's not enough. It's really not enough. So with that, I mean, it's interesting, to me, that I think technology is a way to equalize. I mean, this is a big reason why even countries from a nation state attack, a small country can cause a lot of damage to the world. So I think that's a good way that we can really start to normalize some of the disparity, or just the differences in our income, because hey, all it takes is a little bit of desire. They have access to technology in the schools, and then boom. And with that, maybe that's a little bit of why you've started your company, Think Geeks, right? Is that how it's called?
Yes, Lead Geeks. Well,
Lead Geeks. I'm sorry.
A little different, but kind of all in the same ballpark. But I will say, to go back to what you were talking about with children, lower incomes. Let me just make it clear. We all have the same opportunity. We have equal opportunity across the board. Okay, to be something great, get a great education. It's all equal, right? But that opportunity for some is maybe a block away. Okay. The other opportunity for others are maybe like, you live in another state, but the opportunity is still there. But the obstacles that you're going to have to climb to get to this opportunity are just different. Okay. You might have to climb mountains and hills, and I only have to go right down the street for that same opportunity. So yeah, opportunity is there, but what obstacles you have to go through and what you have to face to get to that opportunity is what separates us all. So these young kids, yes, they have the same opportunities, but they got to climb mountains and swim through rivers and all kind of things just to get to that same opportunity. So bringing that opportunity and giving them an opportunity not to have to climb those hills and just opening up those doors, opening up young minds, it's amazing. It's like, being born blind and all of a sudden you can see. It's just amazing what we keep from people. It's a shame. But I think that, the world's going to change, and we're going to be able to have more opportunities like Capital, more Helen Barkers out there, and people like us helping to lead the way and bridge those gaps. But yeah, Lead Geeks though, yeah, it is definitely what it says. So leader of geeks. And the reason I say that is because I have an English degree. My master's is in education, curriculum, and instruction. My doctorate is in leadership and management. I am nowhere besides my 23 years in the military do I, I'm not in this world necessarily. I'm not at home, coding. I mean, I do have my little Raspberry Pi. I like to play around a little bit with Python, but I'm not heavily into the weeds of this stuff. But everyone that I've taught, all the people that I work around, heavy into this, all geeks. And when I say lead geeks, is because they really have a hard time. They really just want to be in the weeds of what they do. They want to spend time coding. They really don't want to talk to people. They want to be in their little world. So they need people like me to kind of like help them come out of that, be out of that bridge, help them become better leaders. They own their companies. They're doing great things and opening up many opportunities, but they'll get people in there that are a little bit, they feel awkward. They feel like they don't belong. So they have a hard time leading people because they really just want to, melt in their corner. But once they grow and they start, having their own businesses, they need to learn how to communicate, learn how to lead people, just learn how to make people feel a part of this world.
I think that's great. And I'm glad that you, prior to that part, kind of mentioned the aspect of opportunity, because that's a big part that I missed in talking about it. Baltimore City does not have the same opportunity as Montgomery County, Maryland. And people can argue that, but we can look at just the funding to education. That most of the funding to education for our public school systems come from property taxes. So I would like to see some of our elected officials maybe normalize the funding to get it to where some of these communities have the same opportunity in the public schools, because I think they should. Because then you'll have more geeks that you get to lead. And
Right. Right.
I think that's one of the things that I've really, witnessed through, with you over the years is your ability to translate the technology to the non-tech people that are out there. And as a geek myself, sometimes I know I get caught up in the words and the acronyms and the technology, and then I just think, oh, this person doesn't get it. Well, of course they don't get it, because that's not what they do. And that's a big reason why I went to do my MBA, so I could better become a business professional.
Awesome. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, you get into an environment where everyone knows what they know, and then you bring in someone, new. They're good at what they're good at. They just don't know what you do. And those people do. They feel like they're left out. They feel like they're not part of, so nowadays, you get hired by peers, So you get in there, and I mean, I know from experience, my first job in private sector, I worked with all millennials who were, AWS certs and systems engineers and all these great things they were doing. And here I am. It's like, what am I doing here? So my biggest thing is, no matter what you do, cybersecurity is a huge umbrella. And no matter what you love, what you have a passion for, there's room for you in that umbrella to make all of this work. Everything needs to tie in together, work together. It's room for all of us under there.
Of course there is. And sometimes, the us folks in technology, we just want to work on the technology. And we need someone that's going to help us through the business aspect. We all have a role to play in every environment. I think people get in trouble when, let's say I have a computer science degree, or I'm an engineer, and then they try to push you into management because you were good at coding, or you were good at building bridges, or something along those lines. And that doesn't necessarily make you a good leader or even a good manager, because you are disciplined in this particular segment and not in how to manage people. There's a huge difference between those two things.
Yeah, you need both. You need all aspects of, humanities, all subject matters to really make all of this work in the cybersecurity. If you want to get in, talk about cybersecurity, you need all those things to make it work. And then, of course, when you join other things, other AI starts fusing together, all of us start coming together, you get even more of those geeks and awesome people that just want to work on the coding for everything, And then I had so many people tell me, I'd like to bring you on because I want to get in the weeds of things. I don't want to worry about this person's getting paid. People forget that you need, you're working hard. Don't you want to get a paycheck? So you need someone in payroll, someone with that HR experience, you go through problems and you're tired of coding, or you're having a bad day, you need someone to talk to. You need those, you need those psychiatrists. You need all those people to make life work. So cyber's the new big buzz and sexy. You don't actually have to have a degree in cyber to have a place in cybersecurity.
I agree. And I know you're doing a little bit of research with artificial intelligence and some machine learning and how it applies to cyber. One of the things, at least I've been thinking about, and I'm not entirely sure where I stand yet, which is a big reason why I do this show, which is to talk to people like yourself that I respect and others to try to help better get my opinions more mature. In Baltimore City, and especially with you being in the military, I'd like to know your opinion, or maybe you don't have one. They're basically flying drones all around the city, and some people have equated it to being in the Middle East and it being a police state, and all they're doing is utilizing the drones and the artificial intelligence for facial recognition and staring it at doors, things of this nature. Is the government today getting a little bit too overpowered utilizing technology? Is it too easy of a button for them to hit? Do they no longer have the burden to prove guilt today?
I think that the government does what we allow them to do. We want technology, we want the convenience of it all. And then we have a problem though when it turns out to be, we're the focus point. So, I mean, the burden of proof is what it is. But if there's, when you talk about burden of proof, I'm guessing there's someone who's culpable in something. And now you have right here something right at your fingertips saying, hey, yes, this person did it. I mean, thank God for, the video camera, thank God for these things that can show us what's going on in the world so we can make a difference. So yes, it's, I guess I can be ambivalent about technology. I think technology is great. I think that we use it for the right things, whatever that may be. It can really be an advantage for us. But, you know, again, you're doing the right thing. You don't really have much to hide. You don't want too much of invasion of privacy, but you still want to be able to be safe. We all want that feeling of being safe. So technology, you know, and advances will provide that safety for us. We're going to want that. We're also going to have to take the cons that go along with it. So yeah, so now if you think you're about doing something wrong and someone snaps a picture of you doing that, it is what it is. So hopefully people who are innocent as well, who get, you know, accused of something, can now show that they didn't do it. So it depends on how you think about it. It could be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, so what do you think about Microsoft and Amazon and IBM coming out saying that they're no longer going to sell facial recognition technology to government agencies?
Why? And so why are they not wanting to do that?
Well, what a lot of that's out there right now is they're saying that this technology is only being used in the poor communities, and therefore it's not being applied everywhere. It's only being applied in the poor communities, and they're saying it's the racist policies of these government agencies, and that's a reason why they're stepping out.
Yeah, so if they're doing that research and they're doing that study, I too would not want to be a part of anything at this, especially now or ever, that, you know, will make you seem like you're racially biased. You definitely, this time and age, we're coming together and we're trying to squash all of this injustice, and I think that is the right thing to do. It's the right thing to step away from that.
Yeah, they're basically equating it to racial profiling because, you know, unfortunately, when you go to poorer communities, it is typically people of color that are there. I know it's a huge, wide generalization because poor is poor, but this at least tends to be the statistical case that people of color are more likely to be in Baltimore City than someone that's not. And so when they're using these things there.
So solution in racism, and Microsoft and AWS and the rest of them can get back in business.
Yeah, and I think there might be a danger to them stepping away because, well, the federal government has essentially unlimited resources. So then why would they not pay a Lockheed Martin, a Northrop Grumman, a General Dynamics to develop this technology for them? And clearly they know how to manufacture because they're doing chips and electronics and all this kind of stuff. Why wouldn't, it's not a far leap to go that direction, and then we won't actually know the type of technology because it won't be commercially available.
That's true. That's true. I think that, you know, there's always a price on, you know, everyone has a price, it seems. So all I can say is that they're going to have to work on making sure that things are equal now, that fair and just. So if we're going to do it, it's going to have to be a drone in every neighborhood, in the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor. It has to be equal. We don't want to focus on people because of how much money they make and the color of their skin. Because you're going to find, I mean, the biggest crooks we know are probably not living in the poorest neighborhoods. They're probably a lot wealthier.
Well, I tend to agree. This is kind of funny. You know, I'm not giving out any like necessarily some type of securities advice for buying stock, but I invested into Luckin Coffee. It was rated as a buy by all these different people, and come to find out, like the entire 2019, the CFO fraudulently reported on hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, and of course the stock was trading quite high. And now it's like at $3 or $4, and at one point it was like it was in the pretty close to 30 because of the misrepresentation. So there's crime happening with rich people all the way to the poor people. It's not just one particular ethnicity that is committing crime.
We
They're
could
just
we could go another episode or maybe 50 episodes talking about injustice and crime and the criminal.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Not the people. The focus, this definitely should not be on the people, you know, that are considered of color, poor, whatever you want to say. You know, corruption is at the highest levels of income, and that's why their income is so high. We can talk about pharmaceutical, you know, we can go into education. Let's talk about schools and all these certifications and everything that are required just to get a job. We could talk forever about that.
Oh, absolutely. So
Absolutely.
what kind of things are you working on right now in AI and cyber? What's exciting you today?
Oh, well, I think what's really great about cybersecurity from the first day I ever really got introduced to. I mean, cybersecurity has always been here, but I wasn't into it. So I was a signal officer. I was, you know, all dead set on that's what I do. And then all of a sudden we got this new thing, cybersecurity, everybody's got to get ready for, and bringing in these cyber brigade teams, and they're just awesome, get all these great certifications. So what I've seen over the years is how cybersecurity is just coming together, or things are coming together, attaching themselves with cybersecurity to enhance our abilities, you know, to detect, you know, threats and vulnerabilities and all these great things. So I'm looking at right now some tools that are working along with some of your IPS or IDS tools in cyber, and working alongside with those tools to, you know, track behaviors and be able to help us, you know, retain or gather data, you know, and collect it all quickly so that we can react a little faster, you know. So that's basically, you know, how I'm watching AI come together with some of these great cyber tools that we're currently using, and just coming in there and helping us, instead of, you know, manually putting in code and trying to wait for an attack to happen, you know, before we can actually write it down, or all these behaviors that we're trying to track. We actually have some AI coming in there, you know, getting all this data and recognizing tons and tons of data, so that we can, you know, we already have attacks coming through, we can go ahead and knock them out. So, but, you know,
Yeah.
the working day and night as well. So watching all of this, you know, come together, it's pretty awesome, and just looking forward to what we're going to do in the future to combat the next move. It's like an awesome game of chess, or not so awesome game of chess.
Well, I guess it depends on how you're looking at it, because I think in some ways, you know, artificial intelligence, when it comes to cybersecurity, it's not playing chess at all. We're playing Go. And when we're playing Go, you have to have a particular system that is interpreting terabytes and terabytes of data in real time to help us humans make an informed decision. That's what a lot of people, I think, they misinterpret, that artificial intelligence is going to take away jobs from the cybersecurity folks to, you know, you name it. I don't think it's going to take away. I think it's going to help us to create more jobs, and it's going to take that minutia of data. It's going to find that needle in not just a haystack, but amongst a million haystacks very quickly, and it's going to really, I think, expedite the decisions that we're going to be able to make as humans in a faster way.
Absolutely. I agree with you. It's definitely an enhancement. You know, we could easily get out there and we can walk anywhere we need to go, but getting in a car makes it a lot faster, you know, a lot more comfortable, you know? So yeah, just like that, we're coming together with things that are just enhancing what we have. We're always going to need humans in place to make sure that it's running properly and functioning. So it's not going to take it away. It's just going to make things a little bit better for us.
Do you see any dangers with AI and the merging of cyber into it?
I don't see any dangers in that. You know, I see where, you know, people on the other side who are out, working against us to cause these attacks to happen. I can see where they're going to be using it as well. So whatever we're doing with AI, they're doing with AI as well. So we have to just keep that in mind. So the dangers come with the more we come with, the more convenience we have with technology. Anything that we bring in, there's always pro and con. There's a positive and negative to everything. So everything great about it can be also not so great about it. So that's where you're going to see the dangers.
Absolutely. I think from the malicious side, which we have been doing for years in times of coming up with malicious code, we would use fuzzing as a technique in order to find that system to crash. And when it crashed, we would analyze that crash, look at the bug details, and then eventually we could create an exploit. I think AI could also be used in those nefarious means just as much as it can be to help us to secure our systems. And if we're not understanding the red team side of it, which tries to get us to think more like that bad actor, and the blue team, which is the defense, we have to have these equal parts. There's a company out there called Scythe, and their CEO Bryson. This is a lot of where he's taking that red team aspect and utilizing these techniques to have an automated penetration test going on. I'm curious as to whether or not he's implemented AI into this as well. I don't know. I hope to have him on soon that we can have that discussion, because he's a fascinating person. He's a West Point Academy grad as well. So, you two have something in common.
OCS.
Yeah. So what else is exciting for you in AI today?
Oh, I mean, I'm really just getting started. I think the most exciting thing is just watching the people come together, working with data scientists, working with, psychiatry. And it's just a lot of different people are all in this, making it work. And I really did not expect that, to see all the different backgrounds. People are, from your high geeky, math majors, you've got chemistry. We're actually working with Johns Hopkins University, so we're talking a lot of, in biology. So I'm seeing cyber and AI working together in fields that I've never seen them work before. I've never seen the medical aspect of it. I know that this exists. I know that, we cyber and all things that are going on in banks and schools and everything that goes on, we need this type of security. But actually seeing it work in hospitals and working with doctors, in chemistry and biology and all these different fields, and watching them work together in cyber, I think that makes it really awesome to see everyone coming together. It's just so many different minds and everybody working on so many different things, and then bringing that all together to make this one thing work. That's pretty cool. Didn't see that much, growing up. So everybody's always been, just there in their world, and we've always been cyber, or we're doing information technology or security plus or something like that. Now it's just branched out into all these great things that make it all come together. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And I think the field is just going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue creating more opportunities for everyone in the world, because we're all even more connected today than we have been. And we're seeing this with COVID-19 as to how fast a human virus can move around the world. Think about taking AI and that physical protection. We very well might see a time as you are traveling where the sensors are going to very quickly be able to determine pathogens prior to us ever having to enter an airport, and may not be allowed. I don't know how I feel about that part yet either, but I think it's coming. I think it's going to be something that winds up happening. The NBA has recently announced for them to be essentially have an expanded playoffs. I think they're doing 22 teams, and they have to wear some wearable technology that is constantly monitoring their, I want to say, the oxygen levels that they have in the blood. It's monitoring their heart rate, and it's monitoring their temperature. And they're taking these things because they believe that they can find out if you have COVID in that pre-symptomatic fashion 2.5 days prior to being contagious. And so they're all having to wear this stuff. So all of that is being...
I'm a little bit scared of false positives on some things, though.
well, but I think that's the great part, that they get this positive from their technology, then they go to their medical doctors to get tested. So it's an aspect of being alert, they go get tested, and then they confirm the results. So
so you got different layers. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's layers of security. So
right.
Yeah. So, Sister Dr. Mary Margaret.
Yes.
What's next for you? What's your goal?
My goal is to continue working with companies with Lead Geeks, making leaders that are already in place better leaders for, those to follow, and, also giving great opportunities for the followers to be great leaders. So I am just right now going to continue to appreciate every day, live a healthy life, get some great exercise, and I look forward to getting outside and networking and talking to people face to face, even if I have to wear a mask. So the future for me is just to go out and enjoy life now that I can really see, how valuable it is.
It's definitely valuable. I think growing your business and helping, geeks and helping to lead them and helping organizations to better understand how, companies need to integrate in, not just from, a technology perspective, but how we marry the technology and the business world together. I think you'll do great. I hope you will come back on and tell us about your progress, and who knows what other crazy topics the world may present with us in order to talk about.
Oh, we'll have plenty.
Mary, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I had a wonderful time.
And you're absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you. All right. Take care, everyone.